Here, speak my second, sit down. They need this mic.
Oh, really? Well, where does that leave me? I need another
Okay,
mic.
have your own. I gotta go. Take a candle. I'm gonna text you something.
Press it when you want to talk.
These are questions that are really good. I want to
And what?
I want to rub my hands.
Okay.
I just want you to write these down.
Okay, fine.
Different papers. Right on top, Rabbi Rivercamp.
On all that I ever look up?
Then we're going right there. Just.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Right. RR.
Yeah, what else should I remind you of?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. That's fine. That's fine. That's all we wanted to do. If you want, I'll still use it as a backup. The audio. Okay, yeah. Keep it there. That's what I'm saying. Just have a microphone so that the order, what they say, will go into the camera and get saved. Yeah, so.
Want to start the questions?
Which one should I do first?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start exactly on time in Bukharian time. And first of all, let's give a big shout out to DJ Amnon. Now, we have the best panel, but we can't do anything without your questions. So anyone who has question cards, please, and you can keep making them during the actual event. People will be walking around and passing them up. It's going to be extremely not fun without the questions. I'm going to have to make up all the questions in that case.
Here's some for now.
Okay.
Can I ask any question you want?
It's anonymous, so I may not read it, but you can ask any question you want.
I'm just asking. That's my question. I asked the question.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Just before we start the program tonight, I want to give a very special thank you to the Chazak organization and the Emet organization together. The weather tonight was not amazing, but it's pretty warm, but not the most pleasant. But Chazak Baruch to all of you for coming out and for making a commitment to work on your relationship and to making your marriage as best as it can be. And this evening's program is going to be recorded and then edited. So we're going to be somewhat free in what we discussed tonight. A special thank you to Torah Anytime for coming with the audio equipment and for everything that Torah Anytime does. A huge shout out to Beit Gavriel for being such a Makom Torah, such a place of Torah that is literally Emet's second home, Chazak's second home. And I say this all the time and I mean it from my heart. This is a place that I don't believe in the entire world there is such a Makom Torah that's so open and so warm, and you walk in and you feel like you belong. So it's really something special that that Beit Gavriel exists. And tonight we're going to do something that Emet has never done before, and I don't think Chazak has ever done this before. So
They may never do it again.
No, God forbid. Our moderator is going to do such an amazing job that we're going to do this all the time. No pressure. Cards were given out with anonymous questions. And as the evening goes on, there will be additional cards passed around, and you can pass them up towards the front to Rabbi Kigel. Not every question is going to be able to be addressed tonight, but we're trying to get to as many questions as possible. We are going to be having the forum is such that every question will only be addressed by up to two members of the panel. And the first member is going to get how long, Rabbi Kigel?
If they behave, 90 seconds.
Okay. 90 seconds to answer the question, and the follow-up will be something similar, and we're going to try to cover as many topics as possible tonight. I'm going to start. I'll just give my really quick intro. My name is Rabbi Rutenberg, one of the founders of the Emet organization, and one of the topics that we really focus on at Emet is Shalom Bayit and relationships. And Emet has had the zechut to run 4 major couples retreats. I think some of you have been at our retreats, and each one is really more phenomenal than the one before it. And these retreats focus on Shalom Bayit, they focus on parenting, and it's really encouraging to me to see so many people come to work on their relationships, to be the best spouses and the best parents that they can be. I think the true heroes of the Jewish people are those who work on themselves and who constantly strive to be the best that they can be. So Chazak Baruch to all of you. My background, in addition to being a rabbi, I also have a degree in clinical social work, and I have the opportunity to give a class to couples before their wedding. I've given it about 200 times, give or take, and it's really one of the things I look forward to the most at Emet. I'm doing one tomorrow morning, is giving this class and helping couples start their relationships in the best way possible. And whether you're a newlywed, whether you've been married for many years, each one of us is working on these issues of Shalom Bayit and parenting, and Chazak Baruch to all of you. I'm now going to give it to the moderator, who's going to introduce the rest of our panel.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi Rutenberg, CEO of Emet. Okay, I'm gonna have I know a lot about all the panel participants, and they're all amazing, but I don't want to introduce all of them. I'm gonna have them introduce themselves, because I think it'll be more interesting to all of us. So let's start with Chazak's very own Rabbi Meirov.
Shavua Tov, Morai v'Rabotai. The truth is, it's a tremendous, tremendous honor to be standing here tonight with such a chashuva panel. I'll be honest with you, I'm not quite sure why I'm even needed for this. You have 3 experts in the field of Shalom Bayit and parenting, so I feel like I'm really like an added addition that's really not necessary. But then, I realized that maybe they wanted to have things fair and balanced. We have currently without me, you would have 2 Ashkenazim and 1 Sfaradi, and you would have the 2 Ashkenazim always defending the women. That's how it is. So they wanted to get another Sephardi guy to have it, a little equal out. But Bezrat Hashem, we really hope this is going to be a beautiful event to give people chizuk in an area like Rabbi Rutenberg said that is needed chizuk at all times. Shalom Bayit in today's generation is unfortunately wishy-washy in many homes, and all you need is some good tips and advice to really take yourselves over the top, Bezrat Hashem. And I'll share with you a quick quick story before we hand it over to the next speaker that I heard a while back from Rav Moshe Sternbach. He's a Av Beit Din in Yerushalayim. He was once conversing with his rabbi, Rav Moshe Schneiderman, and a young man walks by them and says, Kvod Harav, Rabbi, I got a mazal tov. What happened? He said, I'm getting married next week. Give me a bracha. So the rabbi tells him, what bracha do you want? What bracha do you want? He says, give me a bracha that I should have a beautiful marriage, and everything should be flowing beautifully, everything should be so smooth, and everything this and everything that. So the rabbi responded to him, I'm not giving you a bracha. Why not? Because my bracha won't work. There's no such thing as a beautiful, perfect, smooth marriage. If you want, I'll give you a bracha that you should overcome the challenges of marriage life. You should have the wisdom to say the right things and do the right things. That's a bracha I would give you. And Be'emet Morai v'Rabotai, that's a bracha we all need, myself included. That we should have the chokhmah to know how to navigate through the different challenges. And the purpose of tonight's event is to maybe open up your eyes to different ideas you never thought about, to different concepts that you never really crossed your mind. And Bezrat Hashem, every single one of us should get chizuk to improve Aleph and Shalom Bayit, and hopefully also give the proper chinuch for our children. So once again, it's a great honor for me to be here, and I really hope we will be able to inspire in one way or another, Bezrat Hashem.
That was beautiful. Next, we have Rabbi lawyer, social worker, Katan teacher, probably a couple other things, Rabbi Ribikoff.
Thank you very much. Shavua Tov to everyone. In terms of what to say to couples that are out there, in the secular world, they compare it to a tea kettle on the fire. You put the water into the pot, it starts to boil, it starts to give off a lot of noise, it's very excited, it's very good, but once you take it off the fire, put it on the counter, it starts to fizzle out, it starts to get cold. So in the secular world, that's what they compare marriage. It's all exciting in the beginning, it's all passion, it's all love, and then after a while it just starts to fizzle out. But I heard something even better. You want to make the tea, so you grab for the little tea bag. And the tea bag is really cute, comes in a little package, smells good, and then you open it up and you see there's some strings attached to the whole thing. And before you know it, you dunk yourself into hot water. And after a while, it doesn't make any more sense. But that's a secular view of what marriage is all about. And for us, within the Bukhari community and beyond, we have the rabbis that are here to teach us the correct way. What does the Torah want from us? What does Hashem want in His infinite wisdom when He decided that man and woman should get married to each other? If you ask anybody, it's set up for disaster, and we see that the world out there today, 50% plus divorce rate, and so on and so forth. And within the community itself, it's taken its toll. But we have to understand that the Torah is timeless, the Torah has the answers, and the Torah has the guidance that we need. If I can quote Rabbi Kavatz from Eretz Yisrael, he says, En zug lo mutzlach, yesh zug lo mudrach. It's not the fact that they have couples that are not successful in their married life, it's because they're not educated enough to understand. He says and he claims, I can take any man or woman, teach them what they need to know about married life, and they'll be able to have a happy life together with each other. I truly believe that if you have the correct education, you have the right mentors, you have the right guidance in your life, you'll be able to succeed in your married life. And B'ezrat Hashem, we should be zocheh to have the wonderful marriages that we're supposed to have and we should have, and be the examples for our children in order to raise them in the right way. B'ezrat Hashem.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi Ribikoff. By the way, if you have questions, please send them up. They're not signed, so we don't know it's from you. They're just going to get passed up randomly. No one will know, except probably your spouse. Okay, next we have one of my favorite rabbis. He actually trains Kir rabbis for Olami to make sure that they are most effective on campus. He also has his own website called Shabbat.com that reaches, is it millions yet or not yet? Getting close to being Facebook's #3 challenger. Rabbi Klatzko.
Thank you. I'm actually going to stand here. Okay, I'm short. Good evening, I'll be quick. It's a tremendous honor to be here. I've spoken to Bet Gavriel many times, and as Rabbi Rutenberg, my dear friend, has said, there's a warmth that Bet Gavriel has that's unique. There's a warmth that Emet has brought to the community, and the partnership with Emet and the amazing organization Chazak together is just so beautiful to see, as is Torah Anytime. So there's a lot of power going on over here, a lot of influence. Let me be very honest about marriage, and it's tough to hear this, but it's so. You're going to hear a lot of advice tonight, and it's easy to give advice. It's hard when it hits home. You find that sometimes you'll have rabbis who speak about kids at risk, and they'll teach you how to make sure your kids don't go off the derech, but then they have themselves a kid or do off the derech. And they say, Rabbi, well, all the advice you give everyone, what about yourself? And the answer is, as Chazal tell us, in Chovish Matir Atzmim Beis Hasurim, it's very hard for a prisoner to get himself out of prison. So I can stand here and give you ideas, advice from Chazal, guidance, but sometimes when I'm faced with a challenge in my own marriage, I get stuck. How can I give you advice if in my own marriage I sometimes mess up in the very things that I'm telling you? And the answer is because it's easy to hear advice, but when it becomes very personal, and if you'd only know my husband, if you'd only know my wife, you'd see it doesn't really apply because we're different, we're special. He's unique in maybe not such a good way. So the best I can tell you is like this. marriage is something that you have to be always on guard, always vigilant. And the moment you're not vigilant is the moment your marriage begins to dissipate, Khalila. You always have to be on guard, not once a day, but many, many times each day. And understanding that it's tough and understanding that whatever you hear tonight will be helpful and you're going to store it in the back of your mind. But when the time comes and your husband or your wife didn't speak to you nicely or did something that you weren't pleased with, it could be the advice that you hear now is not going to be the first thing that comes to your mind because you're deep in it. So I'm hoping that besides all the advice that we hear, just the idea that you have to be vigilant and you have to be on guard, at least that you should take away from this session. And then if you're on guard, then maybe the little advice that we're able to give you will come and will rescue you or give you hadracha when it's needed. Thank you very much.
Okay, we got a lot of awesome questions here. I hope no one has anywhere to go the next 3 hours. So basically the way we're going to do this, as Rabbi Rudenberg mentioned, I'm going to pick a random question. I'm picking the more general questions. If someone has very, very specific questions and you don't feel your questions answered, the panel will probably be here afterwards, just run up to them. But I'm picking the more general question just because I think will keep the audience more attention. Everyone's going to get around 90 seconds to answer it. And as the moderator, I get to interject if I feel like it. So that's the fun part of this job. That's why I drove in from New Jersey. Before we start, I just want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Most of you know I was in the hospital for about a week, 2 weeks ago, and with a skin infection that got out of hand. And I know a lot of you guys and girls were davening for me, and I really, really appreciate it. I felt the prayers, and I know it really aided my recovery. So I just want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart. And let's start. We're going to start hopefully with a light question. And remember, there's going to be Shalom Bayit questions and some parenting questions as well. Okay, we're going to skip that one. It's not very light. Well, actually, there are no light questions. Okay. Okay, here's the first question. And I think let's start with, may as well just start with Rabbi Ribikoff on this one. I feel that I'm more religious than my spouse. What can I do to get them on board? Whether that's keeping Shabbat, covering their hair, dressing more modestly, whatever it is, just generally. This happens a lot of times. They feel they're more religious than my spouse. What can I do to get them on board? Rabbi Ribikoff. That was the light question.
That's the right question. I guess religion is always a tough, a sticky subject between the couples. A lot of times the question is, when you first were going out, when you decided to get married to this individual, what level were they holding by? Did you know that they were on a different level than you to begin with, or you're both on the same level and things start to change after you got married? So that always plays an important part in terms of, you married me, this is who I was, this is who I am, and why don't you accept me? It was fine then, why is it a problem now? When things do change over time, it's never easy because the other person has to be willing to accept upon themselves religion, whether it's keeping Shabbat, or for a woman to dress more tzanua, or to cover her hair, or for the husband to get up early to go to davening or to learn. So it's always a challenge. But the main thing is to remember, you can never force religion on another individual. It has to be done with patience and with time. If they have the proper guidance, if you push them, motivate them, encourage them to want to grow, or to give them at least an opportunity to have a support group, or to go to classes, or to shiurim, or to shul, but they have other people that can influence them as well. So sometimes you can say the same thing over and over and over again, and it doesn't hit home. But then when somebody else says something, all of a sudden, oh, this person told me something, and I've been telling this all the time. How come you don't get it? So sometimes it doesn't have to come from you. It has to come from somebody else, from a third party, in order for them to understand it. But the main thing to remember is, don't force it. Don't be upset. Accept them for who they are. And just like even for yourself, the religion aspect of it doesn't happen overnight. It took time. It was a process in terms of when you got to that point. So give them an opportunity as well, and work with them. Be patient with them. Try to learn with them, or give them the right opportunities that they should have, the support group or other people to try to help them and to help them grow as well.
Perfect. That was very good. Rabbi Platzker. This is actually not a debate, but you can rebut if you want.
So obviously, I agree with what the Rabbi Ribikoff said. Certainly, forcing somebody to take on the chumrah that you have chosen probably won't resonate with your spouse. I want to tell you a little story. I just got a call from a lady, and she had gotten into Breslov Torah, which means she was very besimcha and dancing and Hashem, Ela, she's all dancing, and she just loved that.
On the car.
What?
On the car.
Yeah, that's right. And she felt that her husband, who's very halacha, just he goes to daven, he does what he needs to do, but is missing the simcha. He's missing the joy, and she makes him crazy with, "You're missing the joy. And it's tearing them apart." She says, "How can I make him feel the joy? I want him to feel the same joy." And I said, "How do you know he's not feeling that joy? Who says that the way you have chosen to be Oved Hashem is the only way?" Meaning like this. Obviously, if there are certain things that one side, the husband or wife, tries to grow in, and whether it's Shmirat Shabbat or Kashrut, you want your spouse to grow as well. But we all grow in different things. For this man, halacha was his way of serving Hashem. And it wasn't the dancing or the singing. And even worse, the way that she would say it to him, he felt judged. And when you judge somebody, and I'll tell you this for women especially, when you judge men don't like it. Because men have egos that sometimes go too far. But it's true. And we don't, right, a little out of hand. Men don't like to feel judged and scrutinized. And you have to be with a lot of chachma to get people to grow. And you have to value that maybe what you're working on now is beautiful and it's working for you. But maybe your man is growing in something different. Maybe he's giving more tzedakah. Maybe he's being careful in his lashon hara. And you can help them grow. You can model it. But just be aware, number one, don't come off as judgmental, because that's the surest way to make sure that they're not going to follow the path that you are choosing. And number two, understand that if you married somebody who is a half-decent person, they're growing in their way, and you have to value how they're growing, not just the way that you feel you need to grow. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, I promise I'm not going to interject on every question, but I'm just going to interject here because this was the first question ever posed to me. I was married for almost a year, and my wife and I had a friend that was married for like even less than that, and she said that she wanted her husband to learn Torah, and he wasn't learning, and she didn't know what to do. So she asked my wife and I, and just because I wanted like my wife to respect me and stuff, so I was like, Hashem, please help me come up with a good answer. So I looked at her and I said, have you tried davening to Hashem for it? And she's like, oh no, I never thought about that. So I was like, well, let's try it, because how can Hashem say no? You want your husband to be more religious, or you want your wife to be more observant, do some more mitzvot, that's good. How can Hashem say no to that? So, she davened, and boy, did he start to learn. Okay. Next. Okay, let's, a lot of these questions are very similar, which is good. So even if we don't answer your exact question, I'm sure you can figure it out. Okay, here's a good question. Husband is working and making a decent average salary. Wife is working full-time as well. They have 3 kids. They are in daycare with a nanny. Wife comes home exhausted and wants to stop working. Husband wants her to continue to work to assist the family. Can a husband obligate his wife to continue to work? Now, wow, see, we took the gloves off right away. Rabbi Rudenberg. Can a husband obligate his wife to work? That was the question, in case you missed it.
Okay, so that's a really, really great question. And I find that question is one of the most common questions that couples have, whether they're asking the question or not asking the question. And I think this question is particularly an important question because very often we grew up in homes where, let's say, our mothers did not work. And we have a certain picture in our mind of what a mother should be doing. And although we're all intelligent, and sometimes this can actually happen to the most intelligent people, can do the stupidest things, right? And I actually had a conversation with a neighbor of mine going back a few years ago who was upset about, the husband was upset that his wife was not having dinner ready as she used to. And then I asked a few questions, and basically the wife had just started working full time. Before she had working just a little bit, she was working full time, and she was getting home like around 6 o'clock, 6:30, and the husband was getting home at about 7 o'clock, and he was expecting basically the same supper to be ready as if she wasn't working. And this is an intelligent person, but somehow it didn't compute in his mind that she's in a different situation now than she was before. It was such a given, like, you turn on the sink and water comes out. So, wife, cook supper. This is done. Laundry's done. This is done. That's done. And the reality is, when you have two people working in a home, it changes things. It's not so simple. And quite frankly, it could be that in many situations, it's better not to have two people working full time. Now, we could get into a whole discussion of the cost of living here in New York, but it's extremely high, and all the different expenses, and whether it's housing expenses, or whether it's the tuition expense, or whether we're talking about the wedding expense, and I'm not talking about for the couple that's getting married. There's a tremendous amount of expenses and a tremendous amount of stress on families. And my answer to this, although we could talk about this, I could talk about this at length, but my answer in short is there's one thing which has to do with the obligation from the ketubah of a husband and wife to each other. But there's another thing which has to do with common sense. We say there's 4 sections of the Shulchan Aruch, and the 5th one is common sense, using your chachma, using your dat. And very often, arguments and fights and disagreements break out in areas that don't need to break out. But if we would just be more understanding and realize that the dynamic here is different from where you grew up, and therefore it has to be treated differently, so many problems could be averted. And I'll just end with saying that often I find the arguments get so quickly out of hand when it's so not necessary, where a husband might say, "You're not doing this," to his wife, and it'll come across as an attack, and she might respond with, "Why do you think I have to be doing this?" And it can quickly escalate to something which is very, very problematic. And if they'll both look at the situation from the side of, we're both in this together, we're both trying to build a family together, the situation could be de-escalated very quickly.
Rabbi Meiro, can a husband obligate his wife to work?
I'm going to preface this answer with really a basic introduction, which I really missed before, that I don't think every answer we give tonight is applicable to everyone's individual case. We're just giving general answers, and obviously certain cases you may have to sit down with your Rav to really get the final psak. But when it comes to working, I remember I had a Rebbe in Yeshiva, Rabbi Mordechai Finkelman Shlita. He used to always tell us as follows: do you make money to live, or do you live to make money? Do you make money to live, or do you live to make money? Most people here in America, they live to make money. The Jewish way is, I got to make money to live. I got to cover my costs, my rent, my tuition, the food, whatever expenses I have. So when you have a shot like that, the woman, should she work, should she not work? The husband wants her, she doesn't want. This is a very subtle question that the two have to really sit down and weigh the pros and cons. I myself had that situation in my own house. Baruch Hashem, we sat down, we discussed, we even had some guidance in this matter to figure out what is the proper approach to make sure, A, we have the proper chinuch in the house, and B, to make sure we're able to survive financially. So like Rabbi Rudenberg said, I think, there has to be some sort of basic understanding of priorities and knowing what is most important in this home. What do you guys need? What is not needed? And Bemet, do this in partnership. I don't know if you can be mechayev someone. There's a ksuva, there's a certain obligation a man has, a certain obligation a woman has. But at the end of the day, communication could lead to proper results. If they sit down and discuss the pros and cons, and logically and respectfully, I think they could get to some sort of conclusion where maybe she doesn't have to work a full day, maybe a little less, maybe he could drop a little bit from his job so she could work a little bit more. But at the end of the day, they have to take the big picture, their family, into account when we're making this decision, and not just thinking about, oh, we want to have this dream house or we want to have this dream vacation every single year.
I'm promising not to interject in every question, but here, I'm not going to really answer, but I always, this question gets asked to me a lot, and I always say the same thing, okay, and just a thought. Have you ever seen a rich guy whose wife works? That's the thought. Okay, next question. And I know who this question is perfect for, because he's going to tell us how his wife did it. After a long day of taking care of the kids, how do I manage to still keep a smile on my face when my husband comes home from work? Father of 11 children, Rabbi Klatsko. How did your wife do it?
So how does my wife smile when she sees me? I travel a lot, so she doesn't see me most nights. I'm not home. I'm on the road. Well, that's the secret, right? The real truth is my wife knows that it's important that when we see each other, we're not kvetching and complaining, oh, I'm so tired. I see couples who do that all the time, that their conversations are all about how tired they are. You know what I'm talking about? And how, what's hurting you, and it's just so unhealthy. So if my wife knows I'll be home that night, I'm back from the road, she always makes sure to take a nap during the day. If you take a nap during the day, right, there's usually sometime the kids are asleep or they're in school. You take a nap, you're a little bit refreshed. Now, I don't know if my wife's going to watch this. Maybe she will. Some nights she's just exhausted, and you know what? I get it. We have 11 kids, thank God, though some are now married. But my wife runs a very big ship and big Shabbats and a lot going on. So I don't expect my wife to be grinning, smiling every time she sees me. I don't expect that. However, there's a difference between not smiling with that kind of open smile and acting like a grouch. So you don't act like a grouch because you don't want your interaction with your spouse to be a negative one, because negative interactions build up on other negative interactions and they create bad memories. You want each interaction to be a positive one. But if somebody is tired, so my wife sees I'm tired all day long, would you like a coffee? Would you like a coffee? And I always say yes, because that's the halacha. So I always say yes to coffee. And when I see her, I say, would you like a tea? Would you like to lie down? And we're always looking out for each other. So it doesn't have to be smiles all the time, but there always has to be compassion.
I think we're just going to leave it with that. That was a great answer. Okay, here we have, this question is amazing. Just even ask the question. If husband, I'm glad this is anonymous. If husband gives all the effort and the wife is still not happy, how should the man approach the situation? Rabbi Ribikoff. We're going to repeat it. If the husband gives all the effort and his wife is still not happy, how should the man approach the situation? I wonder what the wife would write.
He's doing all this effort. The effort is based on whose judgment? If the husband is doing his best effort, that's what he feels is the right thing to do, but it might not be what the wife wants or needs, and therefore he's, I won't say wasting his time, but he's not hitting the mark because he's not addressing the problem of the wife. There's a famous author who came up with what's called the 5 love languages. I definitely recommend it for everyone to read it and to understand it, that everyone has their own love language that they need in their life. And everyone is different. So the problem that you have is that if you think that your love language is, whether it's caring behaviors or touch or whatever it is, so you judge the other person based on what you need or want for your own love language, about things that you want done to you, so therefore you think that the other person wants that same thing. You cannot use yourself as the barometer to understand what the other person wants based on what it is that you want. You have to learn what it is the other person wants and needs, and that's our job. And as a guy, you know that the women, they're not very open in terms of expressing what they want or what they need. They just want to see if the guy is listening every once in a while and paying attention. At times when she drops a little hint, so this is what she wants, does he get it or not? And therefore you have to understand that part of the marriage game, we'll say, is trying to nitpick the other person's brain to try to understand what it is that they want and they need. And our job over time, B'ezrat Hashem, that the other person should at least encourage and help the other person understand what they want and need, because otherwise, you know, he feels frustrated that I'm trying so hard, but it's not really getting anywhere. So the main thing is, as was mentioned before, in terms of communication, sitting down, try to understand each other, and try to take the opportunity to try to understand the other person better in order for you to be able to give to them, and not just do whatever you want and think is the right thing to do.
Beautiful. Five love languages are a must read. All couples. Rabbi Rudenberg, if husband, same question, we can get two answers. If husband gives all the effort and wife is still not happy, how should he approach the situation? I'm looking forward to Rabbi Rudenberg's answer. He's very diplomatic.
So to piggyback on what Rabbi Rubikov just said, very often we put the effort in what we think is effort, but it's not what the other person needs. And we have a tendency, like Rabbi Rubikov mentioned with the 5 love language, we have a tendency of expecting others to be exactly like us, even though logically we know that that's not the case. And when we talk about effort in marriage, so much of the effort is in the thought, in the care, in the facial expressions. You know, we say 80% of communication is nonverbal, which means that you could be making a lot of effort, but somehow your body language is coming across like you don't really want to be there. And sometimes it's subconscious. That's where we have to get to the therapist, you know, it's in the deep subconscious. But our body language comes across in ways very often different than what we actually think that we're doing. And I think it's important to keep that in mind. I'll share a very quick story that I share with couples that just touches on the idea of effort. And this was a couple that my wife and I had the opportunity to learn with before their wedding. And this goes back like probably close to a decade ago. And the wife, the fiance, the kala, getting married in about 3 weeks. And she says to my wife, she says, you know, my husband, my fiance hasn't said I love you to me yet. Is that a problem? And she's like, I know that he loves me, but he hasn't said those words. So I was learning with the Khatan, and the next week I asked him, I said, and he's a very bright guy. He was working in Wall Street and a very nice person. And I said to him, I said, you know, just curious, have you bought your wife flowers, your fiance flowers? And he says, no, should I? So I was getting the feeling that something is a little bit off. And then I said, what about write her a card? And he's like, no. So I challenged him and I said, listen, it's Thursday night for this Shabbat, buy her flowers, write a little card, it doesn't make a difference what it says, and give it to her before Shabbat. And I said, I'm going to follow up with you Moti Shabbat to see that you did it. I call him Moti Shabbat and he says to me, he goes, Rabbi, you're not going to believe what happened. We went to the florist to finalize the arrangement for the wedding, and the florist gave her flowers. I didn't have to do it. Oh my God! I'm like, okay, we got a problem here, Houston. We have a problem, right? So I dug a little bit deeper, and I asked him. I said, has she ever written you a card? And he said to me, a card. He's like, she wrote me a 30-page letter of all the dreams and that she has for our marriage and all. She was very emotionally expressive, and he wasn't so emotionally expressive, but they made a very nice couple. And I explained to him something which I think is very important for all marriages, which is that I told him, if you write the silliest little thing on a little card that just says the word love somewhere there, or just says something nice, it's going to be gold to her because she knows that this is something that's not so easy for you to do. And I think when we think about effort, sometimes we have to think about, what does my spouse need? What exactly talks to them? And very often effort is not the thing that makes you sweat. It's not. It's like we say. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter.
Awesome. So I'm going to give a shameless plug. We have an excellent, this is for the guys, but ladies, you will benefit. We have an excellent program every Wednesday night for Emet. I hope it doesn't step on any other programs. So is at the Chafetz Chaim Yeshiva. We have a lot of, Rabbi Fasailov runs it, Rabbi Moshe's there, I'm there, Rabbi Eliyahu is there with a huge group in the back. And we start off, for the married guys in the program, a Shalom Bayit class, and taught by me. And we feed them. Once you feed the husband, they're already happy. And I give them different Shalom Bayit pointers. And 1 week we had an assignment. The assignment was to write a card to your wife saying all the things you appreciate about her. Now, once everyone agreed to do it, the wives were first of all shocked, and one husband said his wife was in tears. So I told him, you better write this more often. So anyone who wants to join us 8:15 to 8:45 every Wednesday at the Chafetz Chaim Yeshiva for the husband's class, and then we have learning from 8:45 to 9:45. Okay, next question. We're going to do a parenting question. Make it a sort of an easier one here. I don't want to put anyone on the spot too much. How do we teach our children to respect Shabbat? How do we make the Shabbat table enjoyable? And how can we make the children sit there and listen during Kiddush and not throw things at each other? Rabbi Elon. How do we teach our children to respect Shabbat and make the Shabbat table enjoyable?
When it comes to respecting, not just Shabbat, respecting parents, these things don't just happen overnight. I always tell people when a father needs to demand respect from the kids, that means he is unfortunately lowering himself, right, to get something that they think he probably doesn't deserve. When the mother's demanding, you know what I do for you? And she starts screaming, you better do this now, clean up, do that. It's lowering herself in order to get respect that the kids don't want to give her. So Elamai, what's the proper approach? To get the proper respect for the parents, the dugma, the father should be praising the mother to the children. You know what your mother does? She wakes up in the morning and she does this and she cooks and she does that and she does this. Now the father is giving over compliments about the mother. And as well, the mother comes over to the kids about the father. You know how great your father is, how hard he works, what he does to make sure you have the food on the table and the toys and this and that. What happens is they're gaining respect for the other parent through the other parent. And it's coming in a very subtle fashion, in a very beautiful fashion. Now when it comes to mitzvot, Shabbat, Kiddush, and the other matters that he was discussing, you have to realize if the father is sitting at the Shabbat table, all grumpy, where's this, where's that, why is this not ready, come on, let's go, let's get things moving, then the kids see Shabbat as an annoying part of the week, where the father's always complaining, the mother's always rushing, she's always frustrated. But if the parents come into Shabbat, and they have this huge smile, they feel all positive, and they're making it out to be an exciting thing. Okay, everyone, let's go, we're going to start singing Shalom Aleichem, and you're going to have candies next to you, like I don't spoil my kids too much, I have Twinkies. Whoever sings the best gets Twinkies. Some people hand out sour sticks and that. Something very simple. Gets them excited, and we're all singing together, and we all have to answer Baruch Shema and Amen to certain brachot, and answer to everyone. You're making it to some sort of exciting atmosphere. Next thing you know, they want to cooperate. They want to be part of it. And they won't be sitting on the couch during Kiddush. They'll be sitting on the table during Kiddush because they see there's something additional that's going to come out of it. Besides just some ritual. It's an exciting ritual that the whole family gets together to do as one. Did I answer all 5 questions? You threw in 5 in a row.
Yes, it's great.
Beseda.
Okay. How about Rabbi Klasko? He has a lively Shabbat table. Describe your Shabbat, usual Shabbat first for a bit. How do we teach our children to respect Shabbat, and how do we make the Shabbat table more enjoyable?
Okay. I guess people know here that we do a big Shabbat each week, and we cut it down. We used to have 100 people plus each week. We've actually cut it down, according to Reuven Feinstein, who told us to lower it. So we're down to about 70 a week. So we're small now. Don't try it on. Next week will be bigger. But I want to tell you something that is so beautiful to understand. It's a Torah idea and it'll help you make Shabbat beautiful for your family. And this is important because I've heard from kids who have gone off the derech that they haven't kept Shabbat in months or years, that they chalila hate Shabbat. They hated growing up with Shabbat. And how does one do it? So we have inside of us a child and an adult. It's a child and an adult. And the adult enjoys certain things, and the child enjoys certain things. Adults enjoy building things. Adults enjoy working towards a cause. Adults also enjoy honor. That's what adults enjoy. What do kids enjoy? Kids enjoy instant gratification and instant pleasure. That's not bad. That's what children do. Now, you can't let a child only enjoy instant things, because then he'll eat candy and cake all day and never eat vegetables. So you don't just allow a kid to have instant gratification. But we have inside of us a child, and the child needs to be spoken to, and we can connect the child's enjoyment to all mitzvot, including Shabbat. Let me give you an example. At our Shabbat table, so I'm going to take lunch right before lunch. Every Shabbat before lunch, we have a gala kiddush in my house. And we serve tequila, not for the kids. And we've got different kinds of cheesecake. And we've got all sorts of other cake. And we've got herring for those who are more Hasidish. We have lots and lots of meats, delicious wines. And someone will say, but that's not Shabbat. That's not spiritual. It's not ruchniyut. That's just gashmiyut. But you know what? The child inside of us will connect gashmiyut with ruchniyut. You know where we know this from? It says, "V'samachta b'chagecha." You should be happy with your chag. And Chazal tell us, "Ein simcha el b'basar v'yayin." How would you become happy? Eating meat and drinking wine. Really? That's ruchniyut? The answer is yeah. If we make it fun for our children with the gashmiyut, like the rabbi was saying, you have the sour sticks and you've got the cakes and you've got the treats. So then they'll connect that in their minds to ruchniyut, like Pavlov's dog. Like, oh, Nash, Shabbos cereal, Shabbos Nash, Shabbos treats, Shabbos, Shabbat. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. I want to say one more thing and I'll finish with that. That's just in general how to make Shabbat wonderful for your children. Don't ignore the treats. Don't ignore the gashmiut. The second thing I'll tell you is we have a custom in our home. Because we have so many people, I want to make sure my kids don't lose out. And I actually saw this by Rabbi Orlowik. Rabbi Orlowik did this. And we've been doing this and it's so wonderful, which is at the end of every Shabbat meal, I'll stay a few minutes with the guests, and then I'll say to my guests, goodbye. You remember that, right? I say goodbye to all my guests. And all the guests, they were just at my house for Shabbat. All the guests, they stay down and they schmooze and we put out Nash. And I take all the kids up to my bedroom every Friday night, and they all sit on my bed, and we tell stories and we sing songs, and they make little plays and they jump up and down, and hours until I fall asleep in the middle. And it's special time with the parents on Shabbat. So and I saw Rabbi Orlowik do this. At the end of the meal, he goes to the living room. Instead of taking out a chumash or a sefer, he sits on the couch, and the kids run around and do flips and tricks, and they feel like, Shabbat is when I get my parents' attention. My parents are so busy all week. So treats during the actual meal, of course the excitement as well. Very much agree. It's got to be exciting, and treats, and you have to enjoy it, and you can't fall asleep in the middle of the meal, and you always have to put in 110% of your heart into the Shabbat. Sometimes I see people doing Kiddush. Not Beseder. Take it. I don't care if you could sing or not. Let your voice out. Let people feel, let your kidlach feel that the angels have come. Dance with them in the room during Shalom Aleichem. Like we do that, we dance. Shalom Aleichem, we dance in front of the room. Let it be exciting like it was said. But also at the end of the meal, take some time for your children. If you have younger children, don't be quick to go to sleep. Don't be quick to pick up a newspaper. Don't be quick. Just spend time with your kids, and they're going to connect that also.
Beautiful. Having guests, I don't know about 70, 80 of them, but having guests is a great way to get everyone to pay attention. So if you have an opportunity to have some people over, definitely do it. Okay, next question is, my spouse seems to spend more time with this technology, as my phone is ringing. My spouse seems to spend more time with this technology than with me. What can I do about it? Rabbi Rudenberg.
Wow, that's an easy one. Turn it off, right? This is one question that I can say that every person who I know is struggling with this. Every single person. We live in a time where technology has literally taken over our lives. And just to piggyback on Shabbat, I think if it wasn't for Shabbat, I don't know how anyone does it without Shabbat, honestly. So at least we have that one day without technology. And one of the advice that I would give is take advantage of Shabbat. Because on Shabbat, assuming we're Shomer Shabbat, we're not tempted by the technology. So make sure that at least on Shabbat, you're giving your spouse and your children the proper attention. And this comes with planning. You know, to give our spouses attention, to give our children attention, what I've learned in my own life, and sometimes the hard way, is it comes with planning properly ahead. It doesn't just happen. We need to have times when we're not using our phones at all. We have to have times when we're giving full attention to our spouse, to our children. And in order to do that, I really believe, and like I said before, I'm struggling with this myself, you need to plan ahead. And for example, as Rabbi Klatzko said, sometimes Shabbat is a day that people end up sleeping a lot more than they would sleep the rest of the week. But if we want to connect with our family, whether it's our spouse or our children, we can't go into Shabbat super tired because we need to be able to be attentive to those who we really care about on Shabbat. But in general, technology is extremely, extremely challenging. And thank you, Rabbi Yaniv, for everything you do. Technology is extremely challenging. And I think it's very, very important that we make it a priority to set limits on technology, and to try our best to make sure that we're paying attention to our spouses properly. There's studies that they've been doing more and more studies today because smartphones, although it seems like they've been around forever, are only really about a decade old in America. And just now, major studies are coming out of the powerful impact that the cell phone has on our minds, and let alone the radiation, which is potentially an issue. But there's a tremendous amount of studies now that are showing that the connection to seeing our cell phones is similar, if not stronger, than heroin. Like the addiction, the cell phone addiction, to wanting to see who texted me, who WhatsApped me, how many messages do I have. And if we think about how strong that is, we all know that heroin, amongst other drugs, destroys marriages, destroys families, and destroys lives. Technology is doing the same thing in many, many ways. And although it's a great koach, technology is a great strength that can be used to bring people together, and you can text 100 people for a share, and you could do amazing, amazing things with technology. Like anything very powerful, it can be used for the good, and it can be used for the bad. And I think we have to be very, very cognizant and aware of how strong this is. I saw a study that the average person, and I have a feeling that many of us are better than average in this, which is not a good thing, touches our cell phone close to 3,000 times a day. Okay? So let's be careful.
Wow. That is a scary statistic. I just, on a personal note, when I felt like, there's two things I do. First of all, I purposely turn off my cell phone in front of my wife and kids when I come home and saying like, I'm with you. You know, and that's like very powerful. Does anyone know how to turn their cell phone off, by the way? It's like a side button, then you have to slide. It's a two-step process. They make it difficult on purpose. And then they ask you, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. That's the first thing I did. And I saw it was still not where I wanted to be. So this is a bold move, but I got rid of the internet from my phone. The only thing I can get on is basically m@outreach.com. So I got rid of the internet from my phone. If you could do that, it really cuts down your phone time. And you realize you don't really need internet on your phone. You could always get to the computer if you really need something. It's going to be okay. So that's what I did. Okay, there's like, I'm not over-exaggerating, there's 6 or 7 questions here about mother-in-laws. And guys, they're all about your mother. So none of them were actually addressed to the female, surprisingly. So I don't want to put any particular rabbi on the spot. So I think we're going to try to make all of them answer this question. So I'm going to combine the answers. Now, so you know, whatever. If you're like American Ashkenazi, you may not even like be like, what? What kind of my mother? Like, she loves my wife. What are you talking? So, but we're going to have them answer too, just to be fair. So I'm going to try to combine the questions together, but basically it stems from 2 or 3 things. One is my husband is still very attached to his mother, and 2, my mother-in-law says things to me that I don't appreciate, and my husband does not defend me. Okay? So if any, now, girls, if you can subtly get your mother-in-law to watch Torah anytime, say, hey, I went to this great event, you may want to watch it. So. It may or may not work. Okay, so you got those 2 questions. We're just going to go, we're going to start with Rabbi Meirov and go all the way down. So 1, my husband is still very attached to his mother, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, there's the mitzvah, kibbud avim. But, and the second question is, my mother-in-law says things to me that are inappropriate. My husband does not defend me.
Rabbi Kigel, be honest. My wife sent you that question? No names?
No names.
Anyways,
It was not. It was a lot of questions.
let me see the handwriting. So the first question was that my husband's too close to his mother?
Yes. Too attached to the.
Too attached to his mother. You know, they say that not all mama boys are created equally. I'll explain to you what that means. I say this for quite some time. There's many reasons why a mother's attached to her son. And you really have to try to analyze and see what the cause is in your relationship. Sometimes you can have a mother that her husband was never there for her, chas v'shalom. And she was basically raising the kids on her own, and she was doing things on her own. And there came along that one son that became her husband, quote unquote. When it came to taking care of things at home, he was there. Changing the light bulbs and moving this around and moving that around, doing the shopping. So what happens is that she kind of connected to him as her go-to guy. And l'tzarenu harav, when that son gets married, she forgets to let go of him. So that's one cause. Another cause could be maybe because that the son himself was very unstable as a youngster. He needed that emotional support, that love from his mother. He was always coming to her, and he was always maybe not succeeding in certain areas in life. So she always gave him that warmth and that hug, and that connection continues beyond marriage as well. In certain cases, maybe the mother really is a very tough cookie, and she's very demanding and very controlling. Could be all of the above. So the first thing you have to really do is see what the source is. You know, that connection could be a legitimate connection. That connection could be something that is real, and you have to do b'chokhmah, if you know how to talk to him, and see what the real reason is, and not just look to insult him and say, I don't know why you married me, well, you might as well go live with her, leave me alone. You have to be extra sensitive because you never know what the cause is. So that's number one. You gotta dissect and see what the underlying reason is and try to maneuver your way around it properly and professionally. The second part was what again?
My mother-in-law says inappropriate things to me, and my husband does not defend me. I
think the night is over. No 10 o'clock. See, man. So I think you should just take it down. Take it down. If something goes wrong at home, just tear it down. Just take. Anyways, so that is a very sensitive topic. Unfortunately, we hear this a lot. Dealing with about 3 couples a day. L'tzari harav, many of the problems we have in our community is this issue of mother-in-laws being aggressive, either with their daughter-in-laws, or yes, sometimes with their son-in-laws as well. That also happens. And that's something that is a very sensitive topic that you need a tremendous amount of chokhmah to be able to navigate around it. With this being said, unfortunately, I've seen numerous times over the past 12, 13 years that certain mother-in-laws, or father-in-laws for that matter, let's not just pick on mother-in-laws, that are what they are, and it's almost like you're talking to the wall. You can't change them. It is what it is. And sometimes the couple, the husband and wife, that are experiencing this issue must support each other. He has to tell his wife, listen, I got your back, I know you're right, but this is a losing battle. And the more I talk to her, it gets worse. She doesn't listen. You should know that we're there once in a while, whether it's for Shabbat or a holiday or a Sunday, whatever it is. We'll just swallow it up, just for Shalom Bayit purposes. But you should know she's 100% wrong. I'm on your side. I believe in you. I support you, and so on and so forth. This doesn't always work. Every single case, like I said, has to be dealt with accordingly. Sometimes, because everyone gets all emotional about their mothers, you may need to sit down with your rebbetzin, with your rabbi, with a marriage therapist, just to make sure you guys do the right thing. Because if chas v'shalom you do the wrong thing, and that mother-in-law or father-in-law gets aggressive and starts interfering, things can get very, very tricky. There's a famous thing that Rav Victor Miller used to say, if there was a 10 commandments of marriage life, 10 commandments of marriage life, what would be number 1? He says number 1 would be not to ever, ever, ever get your in-laws involved with issues or problems, or even get them triggered to start an issue. So you have to be very sensitive, very, very sensitive. Keep in mind that mother or father-in-law raised your child, was there for them, pampered them, so much money, doctor visits, all the stress. So as much as they're insulting you, and they're 100% wrong if they're doing it, the husband and wife must support each other and find some sort of solution internally to make sure things don't go out of hand. Chas v'shalom.
Rabbi Lindbergh.
Let's hear the Ashkenazi view.
I think by this point, I don't have the Ashkenazi view anymore. So this is an issue that's not just an Ashkenazi issue, it's an issue that's for everyone. And I had a couple ones that came to me for counseling, and they basically could not agree about anything, except that the mother-in-law was at fault. But they disagreed about which mother-in-law. And these issues are very intense. I'll just quickly say two points. One, very often, as Rabbi Kigel mentioned, and the question mentioned, a wife can feel that her husband is too close to his mother. I find this particularly an issue if, by mistake, you married a nice guy, okay? Because then the guys who aren't such nice guys, they don't have such a problem with this. But it's the guys who really care and are really nice people that very often feel stuck. And sometimes it's more of an issue with the oldest son, sometimes it's more of an issue with the youngest son. But the issue is the guy feels stuck. He feels like if I make one step to the left, my wife says, you're a mama's boy. If I make one step to the right, my mother says, you're a traitor to me. And they feel stuck. And what do people do often when they feel stuck? They blame their wife for making a problem with their mother. They blame their mother for making a problem with their wife, and they go hang out with their friends. Right? And this is not the right solution. The right solution is a husband, and this is something that I teach in the class I give to couples before the wedding. A husband has to know that his first and foremost priority is his wife. And that doesn't mean that he doesn't have a mitzvah, kibbud aveim, doesn't have a mitzvah to respect his parents, but his first responsibility is to his wife. And with chachma, with intelligence, we can figure out a way to make sure that both the mother and the wife feel that they're taken care of. First and foremost, we have to accept that we're not going to make everybody happy all the time. That's a recipe for disaster. And it takes a certain amount of chachma. Example, let's use an example. A couple's married for 2 years, and a mother who lives a few blocks away calls at 10:30 at night, and the couple was going to go to sleep soon. And the mother says, "Oh, my boy," whatever she calls him, some sweet name for him. And she says, "Sasha, come on, please. The light in the hallway broke. You're the only one. You're so tall. You're the only one who can fix this light. You don't want your mother to fall, right?" And she mentions on the side, and also, I haven't seen you in a few days, you know. And what is he supposed to do? So the worst possible thing he can do is say, "I'd love to come, but my wife wouldn't let me go." That's the worst thing he can do. The smart thing to do is to, unless she's literally in a sakana, in a danger, is he should say, "Listen, I'm very tired. It's hard for me to come tonight, but I'll come tomorrow right after work, or I'll come tomorrow before I go to work." And the idea is that he has to go tomorrow. If he doesn't go tomorrow, then he's in big trouble. But if he goes tomorrow, chances are everything is going to be okay. What I tell couples is 95, or hope maybe even more, maybe 98% of parents want more than anything else that their children should be happy. Even their in-laws, even the chudos. They want their children to be happy. And if they're from the 2% that don't want their children to be happy, they need help. Send them to a therapist, to find a good therapist. But you can't do anything about that. And if ultimately, if they want you to be happy, people respect people who respect themselves. And finally, I'll just say to what Rabbi Kigel, I think to what Rabbi Kigel mentioned also, I find, or maybe, I think also Rabbi Meir mentioned this, I find that couples very often, subconsciously, maybe not on a conscious level, if they're not feeling so close to their spouse, they may not directly tell their parents to get involved, but they give messages that the Shalom Bayit isn't so strong. And that actually encourages the parents to get involved. And sometimes I've actually witnessed this, where children will get the parents involved because it's safer to make them the enemy than to make themselves the enemy. So the stronger you can have Shalom Bayit with your own spouse, the stronger your marriage is, your relationship is, you almost can be protected fully from this issue.
Do you remember the question?
Sort of. The Kelin and the Ochamo. The classic case. And when I teach the Khatan classes, I definitely bring it up. So I'll give you in brief what I tell the guys before they get married, what to expect in the married life. And they should understand, even the Gemara says that the mother-in-law hates the daughter-in-law. Not for everyone, but there is a tug of war that's going on over there between the mother-in-law and the wife. The mother raised up the child, pregnant, giving birth, sleepless nights. He is what he is today because of the mother. She fed him, she clothed him, she took care of him, and all of a sudden this little girl comes around, wraps him around his little finger, and wishes him off and takes care of him. And she knows how to take care of my sonny bunny. I know how to make his eggs. I know how to fold up his laundry. I know how to take care of his bed. No, I know I'm going to take care of him. She doesn't know anything. I need to teach her. And unfortunately, they grew up in that society, that mentality where their mother-in-law took care of them and the little broom, and she taught her how to take care of it, but it doesn't really work today in America. So I tell the guys, the hardest question you'll have to deal with in life is having to choose between your mother and your wife. It's Thursday afternoon, your mommy calls, "Hi, Jonam, how are you? How's everything? How's it going? It's been a long time since you've been to our house for Shabbat. What do you say you guys come over for Shabbat? We'll have a nice dinner together or get together. You know, the family, we miss you." And the guy, of course, wants to get away, wants to go visit his mommy. But he's a nice guy. He tells his mother, "Listen, wait, I really want to come, but let me double check with my wife. Let me get back to you. We'll call you back later." "No worry, call me. I'll wait for you. Make sure it's a yes. Bye-bye." He comes home all excited. "Jonam, listen, you don't have to cook tonight for Shabbat. Listen, we're going to our parents' house. Don't worry about it. Everything's taken care of. Let's go. She invited us over. Everything's fine." His wife's like, "I really wanted to stay home. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I spent a nice time together with you, a nice candlelit dinner, just the two of us alone. I don't want to go to your parents' house." What do you do? What's the answer? So, if you think about it, we just read last week in Parshat Yitro, Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha, the 10 Commandments, number 5. It's way up there. You have to honor the parents. You would think that what? The Torah says you got to go to your parents' house. And even in Shulchan Aruch it says that the wife has to honor, respect her husband's parents, because by respecting them, she respects them and she has to respect them too. So you would think that what? The Torah says you have to go, the Shulchan Aruch says you have to go. But what's the right answer? The answer is you go. You stay home. You spend time with your wife. So I asked the guys, how is that possible? Where does it say in the Torah that Shalom Bayit trumps and beats out on number 5 of the 10 Commandments? How do you know this? Where does it say? So one guy says, because it says in the beginning of the Bereshit, Aken Yazov Ish et Aviv v'imo v'tavach b'ishto v'yul v'asar echad. A person has to get married, has to leave his parents' house, has to cling to his wife, become one. That's very nice. But I'll give you a different answer if you want. I asked the guys, when does your connection with your fiancé, with your wife begin? Does it start underneath the chuppah when you put the little ring on the finger? Does it start by the engagement when you give her the engagement ring? Does it start on the first date? Or does it even begin when you make that first phone call to go out with her? And every guy will say something else, the chuppah, the first date, the phone call, okay. I said, you're wrong. There's another answer I didn't tell you. The Zohar tells us that before you and your wife get married, you are one neshama up in the sky. You are one soul. And when the time came for you to become born, and time came for her to be born, Hashem cuts this neshama up in half, and half goes to her, and half goes to you. You come to this world, blah, 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 and then you come to get married together with each other in this world. The connection that you have with your wife is even older and stronger than is with your parents. How can that be? Because the Torah tells us there are 3 partners in the creation of a child. There's the mother, there's the father, and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And the parents give you your physical body, and Hashem gives you the neshama. Your parents bring you into this world. If you ask the guy a question, when does Kibud Av V'Em begin? When does it start? When you're born. They bring you into this world. They took care of you. The rabbis explain Kibud Av V'Em comes from the idea of Hakarat Tov, showing goodness and respect and honor and for all the good that they've done for you. They raised you, took care of you, they housed you, they clothed you, they gave you everything you ever wanted. And the goodness of my heart, the least I can do for them is to honor and respect them. And the Bukharians have a saying, one father can take care of 10 children, 10 children cannot take care of one father. Because what a parent does for a child, the children will never be able to pay it back because you give it from your own heart because they're a part of you. So therefore your wife comes first. Your obligation is to her. And your first priority, as I mentioned before as well, has to be number 1 on the list is your spouse. Number 2 is maybe the children, and everybody else comes afterwards. But you have to understand that it's time to grow up and to understand what the Torah expects from you. That you have to cling to your wife and leave the parents alone. Don't worry about it. They'll live, they'll survive. Getting to question number 2. One time I had a couple that came over for counseling. And they're sitting there, and the wife tells me, Rabbi, don't ask what happened last week. I said, what happened? I said, we're sitting by his parents' house, Friday night dinner, and the whole family is there, and they're all attacking me. It's the wife talking. I said, really? What was your husband? She's like, he was right there next to me, and just nothing. Oblivious to everything. I tell the guy, what do you want your wife to do? If she's going to get up and answer back to your father, they're going to put a big X on her and your life is over with her. She disrespected the parents, God forbid, it should never be heard of. She can't really say anything. That's where you come in. As again, was mentioned before, you have to be the one to get up and to stick up for your wife. If ishto kegufo, if you don't feel that your wife is an extension of you, she is a part of you, she is your other half, then you have a problem. Because only you can answer back to your parents, because they'll accept it from you. It's okay if it comes from you, and there's a way to deal with it. And if it doesn't end, you can get up and say, you know what, guys, if it's not going to stop and end, we're going to get up and leave. That's okay. You can do that. She can't. So it's your responsibility to make sure that you stick up and defend your wife, because that's what she wants and that's what she needs. Of course, there has to be boundaries between the in-laws and the couple. Okay, it's very difficult sometimes for the wife because of the way the dynamics in society is set up with the Baha'i community. So we have to understand how to play the game properly. You have to get your husband on board to make sure that he understands his responsibility. And it's not a disrespect to the parents by you sticking up for your wife and understand that you need to have your own space and your own time. They can't just walk in whenever they want. They can't just do whatever you want. They can't just say whatever they want. It's your responsibility as the husband to make sure that you're together with your wife, and as a concerted effort, as a team, you'll be able to overcome everything. That everything should work out as well.
Amen.
Rabbi Klatskin.
I'll be quick. Okay, I'll be very quick. They pretty much said what had to be said. I'm going to share with you a beautiful little Dvar Torah. It says, "Koshen zivugon shel adam kikriyas yamsuf." It is as hard for God, it is hard for Hashem to make a zivug like splitting the sea. So I always used to think that's a strange comparison, because when you make a zivug, when you make a match, you're putting two things together. And when you do Kriyat Yamsuf, you're splitting two things apart. So usually the Mashal and the Nimshal, they work together. It's as hard to put two people together as it is to split the sea apart. So it must be, it's not referring to the Shidduch, but it's referring to the Neshama when it was up in Shamayim. It was as hard to split up that one Neshama and split them and make them have two different lives with two different tafkidim that did not understand where they're supposed to be heading. It's as hard as it is to split the sea. It's as hard to split one neshama. And of course, splitting the sea wasn't the only miracle, but the miracle was after they left, it got put back together, and the Mitzrayim drowned, and also putting the people back together. So I'm just piggybacking on what you said. The relationship was so tight. It was as hard to split one neshama as it is to split the sea. I don't have a lot to say about this because, first of all, I love my mother-in-law, in case you're watching. I do. I mean it. Okay. I will say two quick things. Essentially, to the mother-in-laws of the world, we've already spoken for the sons. If you are a mother-in-law, back up, please. This is why you want your mother-in-laws watching this. Your job that Hashem gave you was to raise a child to chuppah. The job now changed. It's a different job. It's not the same job. And if we are doing what's supposed to make Hashem happy, what's making Hashem happy now is to take a few steps back and let the couple experience life and mistakes on their own. And yeah, you know better, but that's not your job. And I got a very good chinuch, both from my in-laws and my parents, that as soon as the kids get married, and I mentioned I have a son getting married, Bezrat Hashem, next week, and of course it's hard, and he grew up and we're very close to him. The moment they get married and even really engaged, my wife and I take 10 steps back, and we give them all the space that they need. And we never, Khalila, say, well, you've got to live in my neighborhood, you got to live around the block, you're too far away. If they want to live in Australia, I give them brachot. This is them. We enjoyed having our freedom, and if we didn't, we did not enjoy not having our freedom, and we give. So this is for the mother-in-laws out there. Give your kids the space to grow as individuals, human beings. And for the children, please be aware that there is such a thing called an unhealthy relationship and an unhealthy person. You can have a healthy person that has an unhealthy relationship, and you can have a person who the person themselves is unhealthy. And we know, as we've grown up and we understand that our parents are not perfect. When we're young, we think our parents are perfect. When we're older, we realize they're like us, they're human beings, and they've struggled their struggles. And some people, even parents, are unhealthy people. They're not healthy. And what we need to do is we need to move away. We need to make sure that unhealthiness does not smother what must become a healthy relationship between you and your spouse. So don't be upset if a therapist or a Rav says, you know, your parents, they did a great job with you, but they're not healthy people. You need to step away. You need to move away. It's the best thing you could do. The Gemara gives that eitzah as well in Masechet Kiddushin. There are times that you just have to move away and not be there and have the unhealthiness poison what needs to be a healthy relationship.
Loaded and serious question. Baruch Hashem, I also have the privilege to teach a lot of Katans, and this is sort of like a call I'm expecting within the first year of marriage. And I always basically say the same thing. I'd say to the husband, look, can I ask you a question? How is your mother's relationship with her mother-in-law, your grandma? They always say the same thing. Oh, terrible. So I say, so you have to tell your mother in the most respectful, nicest way possible that if she wants to avoid having a terrible relationship with your wife, that she cannot repeat any of the same mistakes. And, for lack of a better word, she has to, do it in a more American way, where her, the more American way is like the less you say as the mother-in-law, the better. And like Rabbi Klatsky was saying, just take a step back and enjoy your product and know that Hashem is with them. Okay, do we have time for one more question? All right, the crowd's still here. Okay, next question. What if, it's getting heavier, what if your spouse does not find you attractive? I know no one wants to answer that, so we will pick in no particular order. Rabbi Runberg. We work together, so he can't really get mad at me.
What is attraction? People think of attraction as a physical thing. And this is a very big mistake. Attraction is just as much on the emotional side of the spectrum and the spiritual side of the spectrum as it is to the physical. When I teach couples, I draw a diagram of a triangle. If you picture a triangle with one side being the physical, the next side being the emotional, the third being the spiritual, or I like to call the meaning, the purpose of life. And life is made up of these three things. Intellectual, I guess, is somehow connected as well, but these three things make up life. And we tend to think of attraction as being a physical thing, but I'll prove to you that it's not physical. And the proof is that when you feel close to your spouse, they seem much more attractive than when you're a little distant from them. When there's a distance, suddenly that pimple on their face looks a lot bigger. Suddenly, if your spouse is short or tall or this or that, something a little bit different, it seems more odd. And what's the reason for this? Because our essence as human beings is we have a neshama, we have a soul. The connection that we have with our spouse is not purely a physical one, or I hope it isn't. It's so much more than that. It's on the spiritual and on the emotional plane as well. And if we realize this, then we won't look at attraction as being purely a physical thing. And very often, when you start feeling that, it's because the emotional connection is not where it should be. Having said that, on the physical side, it is important for couples to take care of themselves physically. And I often tell couples, I say, a healthy marriage is made up of two healthy individuals. And that means that even though you become one when you get married, you're still, in a way, an individual. You're a person who has your own needs, and you have to take care of those needs. You have to take care of your physical needs, your emotional needs, and therefore be able to be there for your spouse. So it's a big topic. I'll end with one other point. When a person says that they're not finding their spouse attractive, sometimes it can come from a deeper emotional, psychological issues where they're actually having issues with themselves. And this is like some deep psychology here, and I would recommend that you talk to your local therapist or find a good therapist to discuss this. But there's something called projection that happens, and where basically if a person doesn't feel good about themselves, they'll project that on their spouse. And sometimes what happens is a person doesn't feel attractive themselves, and therefore they'll start saying, I don't find my spouse attractive. So it can get a little complicated, but Chazak approved.
Okay. Rabbi Meiro, I'm sure you deal with this question sometimes.
Maybe I'll quickly share a story. I was once visiting someone in the hospital, and by the waiting area, they had 2 stacks of magazines piled up one on top of each other. And it happened to be that I came across and I noticed it, and I saw on the first magazine on top, it showed a picture of a certain Hollywood couple, you know, smiling. You could see they're prestigious, worth millions of dollars. And it says, A and B in love. You know, anyone that would see this would say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's all I want in my relationship. Look at this Simchat HaChaim, so beautiful, everything's perfect. Now the very next magazine right next to it had a picture of the same exact couple, still worth millions of dollars. It's only 2 issues later, one in January, one, let's just say March. And it has like a lightning bolt separating the two of them. And it says A and B split up. How could you go from being in love 1 month and then splitting up a short time later? Elamai, there's a famous statement in Hebrew. En lahem ahava, yesh lahem ta'ava. They don't have love, they have desires for each other. You know, this concept that we hear today, people would see someone, oh wow, I really love her, I want to date her. How could you love her? You don't know who she is. You know, we're living in a society where the definition of love has been corrupted, where marriage life has been given twisted definitions. And the tzarei norav, it's creeped into our homes as well. So I think like Rabbi Rudenberg mentioned, love is way beyond the physical. Obviously, when you married him or her, there was an attraction. The Gemara in Kiddushin says there has to be an attraction. You have to see, you have to be interested, right? But what happened later, one of the problems is that we put too much emphasis on the physical. And maybe at that triangle that he was discussing before, the emotional and the spiritual being neglected. And if Be'emet, you start focusing more on looking for common goals in a spiritual perspective. What do you want to do with your children? Where do you want to be in a year from now in terms of religion? What other emotional needs you guys have? And work on those matters. Then you'll see that the physical starts fitting in beautifully as well. Yes, it's true. A lot of guys complain that my wife, when she goes outside, she goes to the cleaners. She has her makeup and she has this, she has that. But at home, mamash, kilushe. So it's true. Like the rabbi mentioned, we have to always keep ourselves as much as possible on top of the game. A person has to realize a lot of stress at home. Baruch Hashem, people are working hard. There's children, you can't always expect certain things. But again, the physical is not the definition of attraction. It's not 100% definition. There's a lot of other elements that we must take into account. And if you don't, and you feel this problem of attraction, start working on those elements. Start working on the spiritual and the emotional, and you'll see, man, how much closer you get to each other.
Beautiful. Okay, we're gonna, one of the things we're taught in rabbinical schools, you always want to keep the crowd wanting more. So we're gonna end it with one more question. First of all, let's give a big shout out and applause to this panel. These were some serious questions. We were expecting them to be tough, and these questions did not disappoint. So we're gonna end with a parenting question, a little bit on the lighter side, but still very, very important. The question is, how do I raise and discipline my kids without screaming, yelling, and God forbid, hitting? Rabbi Ribikoff.
You're next up.
Well, that was the way to do it.
It's too many years in America. I don't know who wrote this question.
How to discipline
Without yelling,
without yelling and screaming. The problem that we have today is that the only way we know how to discipline is by yelling and screaming and hitting, is because that's the way we learned from our parents. So that's how they disciplined us, and that's what's been ingrained within us, and that's the only way we think is the way to discipline our own children. But as we see today, that's not the way to go. In the days of old, you would just look at the child and he'll just be embarrassed, put his head down, and maybe do other things in his pants. But today, the kids they'll look back at you, they'll answer back at you. They're a little bit more I won't say chutzpahdik, but a little bit more brazen than they are of the days of old. So the ways of parenting of old doesn't really work today, and a lot of the rabbis have said over the years is that the only way to discipline a child today is through love, and through with a nice way, by not being so hard on them and difficult, and disciplining in ways that you have to expose yourself to other methods and techniques and strategies that are out there today in terms of how to discipline a child. Somebody mentioned to me before, the pasuk tells us, "Chanuch l'nar api darko." You have to educate the child according to his needs, and every child that you see within families that have multiple children, every child is different. And some children are very obedient, and some children are very offensive and oppositional and problematic, and that's fine. And God decided to give you this special child for you to take care of, because you and your spouse are the ones that will be able to educate this child in the best way that's possible. Of course, you have to be an example of what it is to be a mensch and a woman in terms of having values and ethics and morals and behaving the right way. Working in the yeshiva, you see children that are very angry and also resort to hitting. Where do they learn it from? I mean, you might argue they're learning it from the TVs, from the movies, and whatever's out there today, but a lot of times, a lot of the curse words that they come with and the hitting aspect of it, they learn it from their parents. They learn it from daddy, we'll say. Because the kid knows that when daddy gets angry, he hits somebody. And therefore, when I get angry in school, somebody's going to bother me, I'm going to hit him because that's what daddy taught me. So is that the education that you want to give over to your own children? So you have to, like I said, try to learn, read up on other methods, speak to other rabbis, other mentors, therapists, in terms of understanding the different ways that there are to educate and to discipline the children. It doesn't have to be, losing your temper, losing your patience, and resorting to hitting. It's for yourself as well to learn how to control your anger, which is an important aspect for everyone. Anger management is definitely a problem for a lot of couples today, and they have to definitely work on it. But the kid's job is to press your buttons. That's what they're here for. Okay, so we have to understand that we don't let them press the buttons, and we're the ones that try to discipline them in the right way. And as well, Hashem should open up your eyes and give you the clarity to understand how to educate the children and to raise up a beautiful family as well.
All right, Rabbi Klatzker, let's bring it home.
Finishing off?
Yeah, let's finish it off. Who's better than Rabbi Klatzko at saying,
Well, these three.
right, how to discipline children properly?
Okay. Actually, I'm going to go against the rules. I'm just going to mention one thing that on the previous question about attraction that is usually not mentioned when you speak about a very holy, in a holy group. But I feel like it should be said because it is being recorded and it's yashrut, it's fair, which is like this. When you got engaged, when you got married, you were attracted to that person. It's not fair to let yourself go after marriage. It's just not fair. If you and that person were in love with each other, with all that entails, it's not just physical attraction, but physical attraction was one of the things. And then now that you've bagged your man, or now that you've gotten the lady, you then let yourself go physically, and now the person is quote unquote stuck with you, even though now, well, look, I did my best. Unfortunately, I meet too many couples who have that attitude, and it's not a healthy attitude. Whatever it is, of course, we all grow old and we get wrinkly and we lose our hair, but to the best of our ability to look so radically different than we did when we were married, it's not fair to the person. They thought they were marrying something and it's evolved. It's not fair. Now, you have to understand, having children can change a person and so on, work can change, but to a degree, okay? I hope I'm not out of place saying this, but I know it's all in your minds. Something like what you got married to. It shouldn't be unrecognizable 2 years later. Right? Nachon? Something, don't let yourselves go. Plus, when you let yourself go, usually it's less healthy, not more healthy. Very, very rarely does a person become more healthy. When you let yourself go, it means you're either putting on weight or you're beginning to not shower like you, or whatever it is. I don't want to say, but you have an achrayut. It's pashut bein adam lachavero, that the person, it's our chiyuv to look a little something like we did for an extended period of time. It shouldn't just, okay, now I'm married, now I don't care anymore. It's not nice. As far as raising children, since I just used up half my time with that, I will tell you that the Chazak organization sponsored a shiur that I gave a few years ago called The 10 Commandments of Raising Extraordinary Children. I believe that Torah Anytime said it is one of the most watched shiurim on Torah Anytime. I want to recommend, if you're raising children, instead of me giving over the shiur now, you should watch a shiur, The 10 Commandments of Raising Extraordinary Children, and especially the first about 20 minutes, we speak about a concept called the showdown. At the end of the day, while in principle we can believe in a strong discipline at time, the reality is that if we love our children and can show them love, then a lot of the discipline goes out the window. And what happens is, and this is a problem, especially with men, not so much with women, but men, we forget that we can physically show love to our kids by hugging and kissing, not just when they're babies, but when they're 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. And there comes a time, you should know, that your kids feel like they're teenagers and then they pull back. Right? They don't want to be hugged. Don't let them get away with that. Keep on hugging them. And they say, stop, I don't want to. No, I'm the Abba, I'm the Ima, I need to hug you. You may feel like it's whatever, like you're too grown up. You're never too grown up for my hugs and kisses. And if you show them that love, they'll break down, they'll feel that connection, and B'ezrat Hashem, you're not going to have to resort to any kind of violence. Thank you.
So before we hand it over to Rabbi Rudenberg for the closing remarks, I just want to thank everyone for coming out here on an amazingly rainy night. And this was really great. I learned a lot. I took down some notes. And I really appreciated what the panel had to say, our esteemed rabbis. I just want to leave you with a quick thought. You know, what is good Shalom Bayit? Right? Does that mean never getting to fight, having everything perfect, like some happily ever after that you never really see what happens happily ever after? No. Good Shalom Bayit means that there's going to be ups and downs, but the couple feels that they're a team and they're putting in full effort. And I want to say, any one of you that came out a night like tonight to listen to these rabbis talk about Shalom Bayit, that's putting in a full effort. I know for sure Hashem's going to bless you with amazing Shalom Bayit. B'ezrat Hashem.
Thank you, Rabbi Kigel. You were an amazing moderator. Thank you. Great job. A few important announcements. First of all, once again, a big thank you to Yaniv and Mrs. Meira. We hope to do other similar type events, outside the box ideas and events together over the coming months. If you have ideas, please come to myself or Yaniv and share them with us. I just want to share about a few upcoming events that everyone should know about. So tomorrow night, Sunday night, right over here, there's a really great class that's going to be given on dating and marriage by Rabbi David Goldwasser, right over here in Beit Gavriel. Tomorrow night as well, Emet is hosting a young professional event with Rabbi Lawrence Hagioff, and that's in Bet El, the shul on Union Turnpike. Rebbetzin Adina Ribakov, Mrs. Ribakov, is starting a 3-part series at the Emet Center called Reaching Our Potential Through Character Refinement. And you need to sign up for that. That's starting tomorrow night as well in Jamaica Estates on Union Turnpike by the new Emet Center. A week from Tuesday, Rebbetzin Devorah Kigel is going to be speaking about how to become a queen in your home, a special Purim Shalom Bayit class right over here for women. And a week from Thursday, February 22nd, we're doing a Emet and Ner Mordechai are making a Emet Mega Challah Bake event for mothers and daughters. And this is mothers and daughters, meaning like for you with your mothers. Not for little children, but 18 and above. This is part of a ongoing series of mother-daughter events that are really, really powerful. And that's going to be a week from Thursday. And just a little shout out as well, on February 26th, which is 2 weeks from this Monday, Emet is having our yearly charity, which is our main fundraising event, 24-hour fundraising event. You'll see information about it, and we really appreciate everyone's support in the past, and it really allows Emmet to grow and to be able to do what we do. So once again, thank you to our amazing panel over here, Rabbi Meira, Rabbi Rivka, Rabbi Kasko, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Chazak u'Baruch, everyone.